We have one more bill with witnesses before we get to the main event here. So we have Senator Bell for Senate Bill 317.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. This bill would make it a criminal offense for a law enforcement officer defined using the peace officer definition in 12-7-21 to have sexual intercourse using the official sexual penetration definition in Rhode Island law with someone in their custody. The intent is that in these sorts of circumstances, the power dynamic is such that it is difficult to give meaningful consent. There have been a couple of stories around the country of people unable to seek justice, victims unable to seek justice under existing sexual assault laws. The intent of this law is not to result in overcharging. When someone can also be prosecuted under first-degree sexual assault. And so there's language in there to prevent that. So it is only to be used in cases when a first-degree sexual assault prosecution would not move forwards. There are a couple of other protections that have been put into this bill. One of them is the final part of it, Part D, which says that basically if under the preponderance of the evidence standard, there's evidence that essentially the law enforcement officer was the victim. And so the idea is there was a case where there was a prison guard who was assaulted by an inmate, and certainly if a law enforcement officer is a victim of sexual assault, you wouldn't want that law enforcement officer to be prosecuted under the statutes. That's a very important protection. And I'll let a lot of some of the other witnesses testify to the importance of this bill, but I think it's a pretty straightforward bill. I think it's difficult to justify why this circumstance should be allowed and should not be a criminal statute. And I think it's very important that we close this loophole to improve. And one of the goals here is that people who are in police custody will feel safer, particularly sex workers and people from vulnerable communities. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Senator Lombardi.
Senator, can you just, oftentimes in this committee, when we create new criminal laws, there's always this debate about whether or not it's already punishable under another statute.
Yes.
And certainly I understand the custodial nature of the relationship would warrant that there may not be informed consent, if you will, given the the correctional officer and the inmate situation. But you mentioned loopholes. Can you just give me an example of something across the country where this has happened and we can't prosecute under an existing statute?
Yeah, so there was a case in New York, Anna Chambers, recently, where she was unable to seek justice under existing statutes that were similar to Rhode Island statutes. And I want to thank you for pointing out this dilemma, right? When you create a more specific offense that could also overlap with another one. And that's a very important problem to try and address. I think that we've come up with a good solution. And that is Section 4 here, or Section A4, where it says none of the circumstances set forth in 1137-2 or 37-4 exist. So the intent there is basically to prevent against this being used as a sentencing enhancement for overcharging. So it could not be used if someone is guilty under the first-degree sexual assault statute.
Senator Lombardi.
Has the ACLU honed in on this statute yet?
So the ACLU consulted and was very involved in the drafting of the statute. Much of the language was drafted by the ACLU or in consultation with them. I don't believe that their board has taken a formal vote or position on this issue. I think, they're broadly in support, but I don't believe that I can't say formally that they're in support until that they have made a formal determination there, and I wouldn't want to say that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Senator Coyne?
Thank you. Do you know where the Department of Attorney General stands on this?
I don't believe they've taken a position on this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Senator Bell? Thank you.